The alarm sounded through the quiet night shift of Earth's deep space monitoring station. Commander Eliza Morrison jolted awake from her light doze, eyes quickly adjusting to the flashing red lights on her console. She had been monitoring the deep space communication channels for 8 hours with nothing unusual. Until now. "Report," she said, voice clear despite her sudden awakening. "Commander, we're picking up a signal from the Proxima Centauri system," said Officer Ben Richards, his fingers flying over the touchscreen. "It's using the universal distress frequency." Eliza frowned. Proxima Centauri was home to the Luminari, the first alien species humanity had made contact with just 3 years ago. They were peaceful beings who had welcomed humans into the galactic community with open arms. A distress signal from them was deeply concerning. "Put it through," she ordered. The speakers crackled with static. Then a voice came through, high-pitched and musical, but clearly filled with fear. "To any who receive this message. This is High Counselor Ziv of the Luminari Confederation. Our worlds are under attack by the Void Collective. They destroy everything in their path. Our defenses have failed. We face extinction within weeks without help. Please. Anyone." The message cut off in a burst of static. Eliza didn't hesitate. "Send this up the chain of command. Now. Priority Alpha. Wake up Admiral Bennett if you have to." Within an hour, the United Earth Defense Force headquarters was alive with activity despite the late hour. Eliza stood at attention before Admiral Jack Bennett and the hastily assembled Security Council in Geneva, connected via holographic projection. "The message is authentic?" asked Admiral Bennett, his weathered face grave. "Yes, sir," Eliza replied. "We've verified the signal patterns. It matches the Luminari diplomatic codes." The council members looked at each other with concern. The Luminari were advanced in many ways, but their species had evolved in peace. They had few weapons and no real military. If they were under attack, they would indeed be defenseless. "What do we know about this Void Collective?" asked one of the counselors. "Very little," admitted Eliza. The Luminari mentioned them in their cultural database as a nomadic species from the outer arm of the galaxy. They were thought to be mostly harmless, keeping to themselves. Admiral Bennett stood up and walked to the window overlooking the lights of Geneva. "The Luminari welcomed us into the galactic community. They shared their technology freely. They've asked for our help." He turned to face the council. "I say we give it to them." The vote was quick and unanimous. Earth would respond to the distress call, not just with observers or diplomats, Bennett clarified, with the full might of the Deathworlder Armada. A murmur went through the room. The Deathworlder Armada was Earth's newest and most powerful fleet, built after humanity discovered their classification in the galactic community as Deathworlders, creatures who had evolved on a planet so hostile that their biology made them naturally stronger, faster, and more resilient than most other sentient species in the known galaxy. Lieutenant Sam Kelly, who had joined the meeting late, spoke up from the back of the room. With his background in marine biology before joining the military, he understood, more than most, what that classification truly meant. "The Luminari don't understand what they've asked for," Sam warned. "They've never seen humans at war. Our capacity for violence would terrify them." "Better they be terrified than extinct," replied Bennett simply. The meeting ended with orders issued. 20 ships would depart Earth orbit within 7 days, led by the flagship battlecruiser Defiance. Captain Olivia Wright received the news of her assignment with quiet determination. At 42, she had served in Earth's Navy for over 2 decades. But this would be her first command in interstellar space. "We're making history," she told her newly assembled senior officers aboard the Defiance. Humanity's first interstellar military campaign. Her officers were a mix of veterans and specialists. Communications expert Alan Garcia had studied the Falber Luminary language for years. Weapons officer Kate Peterson had helped design the new plasma cannons that gave Earth ships their edge. Chief Engineer Victor Patel could coax more power from the engines than their designers thought possible. "The Luminari sent us a distress call," Olivia said to them. "On Earth, that means something. When someone calls for help, they get everything, we've got. The Defiance was a marvel of human engineering, nearly half a kilometer long. Its sleek hull housed weapons that could reduce a small moon to rubble. But its true strength wasn't in its firepower. It was in the humans who crewed it. While the fleet prepared, Earth's diplomatic corps worked, overtime. Ambassador Susan Boyd was briefed extensively on what little was known about the Void Collective. Her job would be to establish communication and, if possible, negotiate peace. But everyone knew the fleet wasn't being sent to talk. On the day of departure, thousands gathered to watch the Deathworlder Armada leave Earth orbit. 20 ships, ranging from massive battlecruisers to quick, agile destroyers, formed up in a defensive pattern before activating their FTL drives. In a flash of brilliant blue light, they vanished from Earth's skies. In her quarters aboard the Defiance, Eliza Morrison looked at a picture of her family, her husband Carl and their 2 children. She hadn't told them about the distress signal, just that she was being deployed on an important mission. She wondered what the Luminary families were like. If they too had children they were desperate to protect. The journey to Proxima Centauri would take 5 days at maximum FTL speed. 5 days for the crew to prepare, to train, to wonder what they would find when they arrived. As the Defiance hurtled through space faster than light, Olivia Wright gathered reports from the fleet. Every ship was operating at peak efficiency. Every crew member understood the importance of their mission. Humanity had been peaceful for decades, but the instincts for war remained, buried just beneath the surface of civilization. On the final day of their journey, Olivia called her senior officers together one last time. "We don't know what we're flying into," she told them honestly. "But we know who we're fighting for. The Luminari trusted us enough to ask for help. We won't let them down." Hours later, the Deathworlder Armada dropped out of FTL at the edge of the Proxima Centauri system. What they saw stunned them into silence. The outer colonies of the Luminari were burning. The 20 ships of the Deathworlder Armada spread out in a defensive formation around the burning remains of the Luminary outer colonies. Captain Olivia Wright stood on the bridge of the Defiance, her face grim as she looked at the destruction, displayed on the main view screen. "Scan for survivors," she ordered. Lieutenant Commander Daniel Murphy worked quickly at his station. His fingers flew over the controls as the ship's sensors swept through the wreckage of what had once been thriving Luminary settlements. "No life signs detected, Captain," he reported after a few minutes. His voice was steady, but his knuckles were white as he gripped the edge of his console. "The weapon signatures don't match anything in our database." Olivia nodded once, her jaw tight. "Send out the scout ships. I want eyes on every part of this system." Around the Defiance, smaller ships detached from the fleet and moved toward the inner planets. Their mission was to locate any surviving Luminari and to find signs of the Void Collective. Communications specialist Alan Garcia monitored all channels. "Captain, I'm picking up transmissions from the Luminary homeworld. They're still there and they're still fighting." A collective sigh of relief went through the bridge. The homeworld at least had survived. "Send them a message," Olivia said. "Tell them Earth has responded to their call." Before Garcia could send the message, warning alarms blared across the bridge. "Multiple unknown vessels appearing at the edge of the system," reported Commander Greg Hudson, the tactical officer. "They're big, Captain. Much bigger than our ships." The view screen shifted to show the new arrivals. The vessels were enormous black structures that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. They moved with surprising speed for their size, heading directly toward the human fleet. "Hail them," Olivia ordered. Garcia opened a channel. "Unknown vessels, this is the Earthship Defiance. We are responding to a distress call from the Luminary Confederation. State your intentions." The reply came quickly. The voice was flat and emotionless, speaking perfect English as if it had analyzed and mastered the language in seconds. "Your species classification, irrelevant. Resistance, futile. Depart or be eliminated." Olivia exchanged a glance with Commander Hudson. In that brief look was a shared understanding that only humans who had spent their lives in military service could know. The Void Collective couldn't know it, but they had just made a critical mistake. Humans thrived on threats. All ships, battle stations, Olivia said calmly. Shields up, weapons online. Throughout the fleet, crews rushed to their posts. On the Defiance, weapons officer Kate Peterson activated the ship's plasma cannons and missile systems. They're launching fighters, Hudson reported as smaller craft poured from the Void Collective ships. Launch our own, Olivia ordered. Defensive pattern Delta. The first engagement was brief and devastating. The Void Collective fighters were larger and seemingly better armed, but they moved in predictable patterns. Human pilots trained to think independently and adapt quickly outmaneuvered them at every turn. The Defiance shuddered as it took a direct hit from one of the larger Void ships, but its shields, designed to withstand forces that would tear apart, most vessels held firm. Return fire, Olivia commanded. The Defiance's plasma cannons fired, their blue-white energy cutting through the darkness of space to strike the nearest Void Collective vessel. To everyone's surprise, the shot pierced, straight through the alien ship's defenses. Direct hit, Peterson called out. Their shields are weaker than we expected. Hudson studied his tactical display. They've never encountered weapons like ours before, he realized. They don't know how to defend against them. The battle continued. For nearly an hour. 3 Earth ships suffered heavy damage, but none were destroyed. In contrast, 2 of the Void Collective's vessels were crippled and drifting, while their fighters retreated back to the safety of the larger ships. They're pulling back, Hudson reported, regrouping at the edge of the system. Olivia nodded. Let them go. Our priority is the Luminary homeworld. The Defiance led the fleet toward the inner planets. As they approached the Luminary homeworld, they could see signs of battle even from orbit. Parts of the once beautiful crystal cities lay in ruins, though much of the planet remained intact. The Void Collective focused their attack on military and governmental targets, Murphy observed as he scanned the planet. They're being systematic. Ambassador Susan Boyd prepared to lead a diplomatic team to the surface. At 53, she was one of Earth's most experienced diplomats, having represented humanity in first contact situations twice before. Remember, she told her team as they boarded the shuttle, the Luminari are peaceful beings. What they've experienced is beyond their understanding. They will be traumatized. The shuttle landed in what had once been the central plaza of the Luminari capital city. Crystal spires still reached toward the sky, but many were cracked or shattered. The Luminari themselves, tall, slender beings with translucent skin that glowed with inner light, approached cautiously. Their leader, an elder whose light pulsed with a soft blue radiance, stepped forward to meet Susan. I am the Luminari Prime, the alien said in its musical language which Susan's translator converted to English. You have come from Earth. Yes, Susan replied with a respectful bow. We received your distress signal. I am Ambassador Susan Boyd, representing the United Earth government. The Luminary Prime's inner light flickered in what Susan recognized as confusion. You came with weapons? It asked. Susan was taken aback by the question. Of course, she replied simply. You sent a distress signal. On Earth, that means you get everything we have. We thought you would send negotiators, the Luminary Prime explained. Perhaps medical aid. Your ships, they fought the Void Collective. Directly. That's what humans do when our friends are threatened, Susan said. She gestured to the fleet in orbit, visible as bright points of light in the afternoon sky. The Deathworlder Armada represents Earth's commitment to your safety. The Luminary Prime's light pulsed rapidly, a sign of strong emotion. The Galactic records classify humans as Deathworlders. We did not understand what this truly meant until today. Your species evolved on a planet that should have killed you, and it made you formidable. Susan smiled gently. We prefer to think of ourselves as protective. As night fell on the Luminary homeworld, the Void Collective remained at the edge of the system watching and waiting. On board the Defiance, Captain Olivia Wright studied the enemy fleet. The first battle had gone their way, but she knew better than to underestimate an enemy after a single engagement. They'll adapt, she told her officers during their briefing. They'll learn from this defeat and come back stronger. Lieutenant Sam Kelly nodded in agreement. The question is, what will they learn, and how quickly? As if in answer to his question, the long-range sensors picked up more Void Collective ships entering the system. The real war was just beginning. The Void Collective retreated to the outer edges of the Proxima Centauri system. This gave the humans time to establish defensive positions around the remaining luminary worlds. Captain Olivia Wright used this pause to gather her officers for a strategy meeting aboard the Defiance. They'll be back, she told her team. And they'll be stronger next time. Science Officer Eric Chambers had spent the last 12 hours analyzing debris from the damaged enemy ships. He pulled up holographic images of the Void Collective vessel components. I've made an important discovery, he said, pointing to the structural elements. These ships are built for space that has very little gravity or pressure. The beings who made them evolved in low-gravity environments. The officers leaned forward with interest as Eric continued. This means their structures can't withstand the forces our ships can generate. Their hulls cracked under our weapons, not because our weapons are so powerful, but because their ships are built for different conditions. Captain Wright nodded slowly. Can we use this weakness? Absolutely, Eric replied. If we can force them to fight near a large planetary body, the gravity alone will stress their ships beyond design limits. Dr. Laura Phillips, the ship's xenobiologist, added her own insights. She had been studying the communication patterns intercepted from the Void Collective. Their communication suggests they think as one mind, she explained. Not individuals like us. They've never encountered individualized, tactical thinking before. That's why our pilots confuse them so easily. Lieutenant Sam Kelly smiled. So they're weak against gravity and can't handle unpredictable tactics. That's two advantages for us. Captain Wright stood up and walked to the main display showing the luminary system. Then we use both. I'm calling it Operation Hellfire. Plan was bold and would seem insane to most galactic species. The humans would deliberately expose themselves to what should be lethal conditions to gain tactical advantage. Marine Commander Patrick Nelson prepared 20 soldiers in special exo armor suits. These heavy combat suits could withstand extreme conditions and amplify human strength. The Marines trained for their mission, boarding a Void Collective ship. We'll enter through their damaged sections, Patrick told his team. According to our scans, the interior of their ships is filled with radiation that would kill most galactic species, but our suits can protect us for up to 6 hours. Meanwhile, pilot Nancy Clark led a squadron of 12 fighter pilots in simulation drills. Their mission would be even more dangerous. We'll fly through the upper atmosphere of the gas giant, she explained, pointing to the massive planet on the system map. The heat and pressure should be manageable for our ships for a short time, but the Void Collective won't expect anyone to enter that environment willingly. The Luminary watched these preparations with a mixture of horror and awe. A delegation of their scientists came aboard the Defiance to observe the training. Your species willingly enters environments we consider certain death, one Luminary scientist said to Sam Kelly as they watched the Marines practice in simulated high radiation zones. Humans evolved on a world that tried to kill us every day, Sam explained. Extreme heat, bitter cold, radiation from our sun, predators, disease, we survived it all. That's why we're called Deathworlders. The Luminary's inner light pulsed with a new understanding. We thought Deathworlder was just a scientific classification. We did not realize it was a warning. As the preparations continued, the sensors detected movement from the Void Collective fleet. Their ships were advancing toward the Luminary, homeworld again, but this time they moved in a different formation. They had clearly learned from their earlier defeat. Captain Wright gave the order. Begin Operation Hellfire. The human fleet split into 3 groups. The main fleet, led by the Defiance, moved to intercept the Void Collective head-on. This was the obvious move, the one the enemy would expect. The second group, Commander Nelson's boarding team, used small, stealthy ships to approach from below the plane of battle, hidden in the sensor shadow of the gas giant. The third group, Nancy Clark's fighter squadron, did the unthinkable. They flew directly into the upper atmosphere of the gas giant, using the violent storms and incredible pressure as cover. The battle began much as the first one had, with the Void Collective launching fighters and the main human fleet responding, in kind. But the Void had indeed adapted. Their weapons now focused on different frequencies, trying to find weaknesses in the human shields. The Defiance took several hits, but held firm. "They're testing us," Weapons Officer Kate Peterson observed, "looking for our breaking point." "And keeping us busy," Captain Wright added. "They don't know about our other teams." Commander Nelson's boarding party reached the nearest Void Collective ship undetected. Using laser cutters, they sliced through the already damaged hull and entered the enemy vessel. As expected, their sensors showed high levels of radiation inside, but their suits protected them. "They have no internal defenses," Patrick reported as his team moved through the alien corridors. "They never expected anyone could survive their ship environment." The Marines planted explosive devices at key structural points, then moved to the ship's central control area. There they found something unexpected: the Void Collective beings themselves. They were small, almost translucent creatures floating in a thick liquid. They didn't move independently but seemed connected to the ship itself through a network of thin tendrils. "They're part of the ship," Patrick realized. Or the ship is part of them. Meanwhile, Nancy Clark's fighter squadron had completed their dangerous journey through the gas giant's atmosphere. The intense heat had damaged their ships, but all 12 emerged on the far side of the planet, directly behind the Void Collective fleet. "Target their propulsion systems," Nancy ordered. "Precise hits only." The fighters attacked with surgical precision, their weapons striking the vulnerable engine sections of the massive Void ships. Without their engines, the ships began to drift toward the gas giant, unable to fight against its gravitational pull. On the Defiance, Captain Wright watched as the battle turned in their favor. Nelson's team had disabled one ship from within. Clark's squadron had crippled 3 more from behind, and the main fleet had held the line against the remaining enemy vessels. "They're retreating again," Tactical Officer Greg Hudson reported. "But this time they're leaving some of their ships behind." The Luminary, watching the battle from their homeworld, were astounded by the human victory. Their own scientists had always believed the Void Collective was unstoppable, their technology too advanced to fight against. Yet humans had found weaknesses and exploited them, using their unique Deathworlder advantages, their ability to survive in hostile environments and their individual tactical thinking. Ambassador Susan Boyd met with the Luminary Prime to discuss the victory. "This is only the beginning," she warned. "The Void Collective will analyze this defeat. They will come back with new tactics designed specifically against humans." The Luminary Prime's light pulsed with concern. "Can you defeat them again?" Susan smiled confidently. "There's something you should understand about humans. We become more dangerous when we're challenged." Back on the Defiance, Captain Wright was already planning for the next encounter. The Void Collective had proven they could adapt quickly. The advantage of surprise was gone. "They'll be coming for us specifically next time," she told her officers. "And they'll be bringing everything they have." The Void Collective returned 3 days later. This time, their ships were different. The massive black vessels had been modified, their hulls reinforced with new materials that glinted in the light of Proxima Centauri. They've adapted their ships to withstand gravitational stress, Eric Chambers reported as he studied the sensor readings on the Defiance's bridge. Captain Olivia Wright nodded grimly. "And what else have they prepared for us?" The answer came quickly. The Void Collective attacked with weapons specifically designed to target human physiology. They emitted sound frequencies that disrupted human neural patterns and released atmospheric agents that attacked human respiratory systems. The Defiance took heavy damage in the first wave of the attack. Emergency alarms blared throughout the ship as systems failed and crew members collapsed at their stations. "Get those people to medical," Olivia shouted, even as she fought to stay upright herself. A high-pitched whine filled the bridge, making it hard to think or focus. In the medical bay, Chief Medical Officer Ryan Cooper worked frantically to treat the injured. Crew members arrived with bleeding ears and struggling to breathe. Ryan had never seen anything like it. "They've studied our biology," he told his medical team as they distributed specialized breathing masks. "These attacks are designed specifically for humans." Captain Wright herself soon arrived in medical, her face pale and a thin line of blood trickling from her right ear. "Report, Doctor," she demanded, refusing to lie down despite Ryan's insistence. "The sound is causing damage to our inner ear structures," Ryan explained as he examined her. "And the atmospheric agent is some kind of neurotoxin that targets human respiratory control centers. I've never seen anything like it." "Can you counter it?" Olivia asked, her voice strained. "We're working on it," Ryan replied. "But they're learning, Captain. They're learning about us faster than we expected." Throughout the Deathworlder Armada, the situation was the same. Human ships struggled against the new Void Collective weapons. 3 smaller Earth vessels had already been disabled, their crews incapacitated by the targeted attacks. In the engineering section of the Defiance, engineer Michelle Baker made a critical discovery as she worked to maintain the failing ship systems. "The enemy transmissions are quantum-linked," she reported to the bridge. "I was trying to block them, but I realized something. They're not just communicating. They're sharing a consciousness across their ships." This insight proved crucial. If the Void Collective shared a consciousness, then they would share vulnerabilities as well. On Earth, Director Frank Powell of the United Earth Defense Force received the distress calls from the Deathworlder Armada. He immediately mobilized Earth's industrial capacity. A second fleet was being assembled, larger than the first. "Every available ship," he ordered, "and load them with the new electromagnetic pulse weapons. If those things have a shared consciousness, let's give them a shared headache." Back in the Proxima Centauri system, the tide of battle turned when Lieutenant Paul Warren, a communications specialist, managed to do what seemed impossible. He intercepted and decoded the Void Collective's quantum signals. "I can see their commands," he told Captain Wright, his voice excited despite the pain from the sonic attack. "I can predict their movements." With this advantage, the human fleet began to coordinate their attacks to exploit the moments when the Void Collective ships were most vulnerable. They targeted the same points across multiple enemy vessels simultaneously, causing cascading failures throughout the enemy fleet. The Luminari contributed what they could to the battle. Though they had few weapons, their natural ability to manipulate light proved valuable. They created massive illusions in space that confused the Void Collective sensors, making their ships fire at targets that weren't there. The combined human luminary defense forced the enemy into another tactical retreat. This time, however, 5 Void Collective ships had been destroyed, and 3 more were too damaged to escape. It was a costly victory for the humans as well. 2 Earth ships had been destroyed, and most of the others, including the Defiance, had taken serious damage. As the battle paused, Captain Wright called a meeting of all ship captains and the Luminari High Council. They gathered in the Great Crystal Hall of the Luminari capital city. "They'll be back," Olivia told the assembled leaders. "And they'll be stronger next time. We need to prepare." The Luminari listened with new respect. The High Council formally recognized humanity's classification as Deathworlders not as a scientific curiosity, but as the galaxy's most formidable defenders. "In our history, we have always believed that peace was the highest calling," the Luminari Prime said. "But we now understand that peace must sometimes be defended with force. We ask that Earth continue to stand with us." Ambassador Susan Boyd stepped forward. "Earth stands with its allies. Always." As the meeting continued, news arrived from the human science teams who had been studying the captured Void Collective ships. They had discovered something important about the enemy's true nature. "The Void Collective isn't just a species, Doctor," Laura Phillips explained to the gathered leaders. "It's a collective consciousness that absorbs other species. The beings we found on their ships were once independent life forms before they were assimilated. This revelation changed everything. What had seemed like a straightforward war against an aggressor was now a more complex ethical situation. Were they fighting an entire species? Or were they fighting something that had taken over multiple species?" As the Luminari and humans discussed this new information, a transmission came through from Earth. The second fleet was on its way, led by the newly commissioned super battleship Vengeance. It carried new weapons designed specifically to counter the Void Collective's attacks on human biology. Captain Wright returned to the damaged Defiance to oversee repairs. Engineer Michelle Baker had been working non-stop to restore the ship's systems and had made an important modification to their defenses. "I've adjusted our shields to block the specific frequencies they used against us," she explained. "And our life support systems now filter out their neurotoxins." But everyone knew the Void Collective would have new weapons next time. The humans would need to be ready with new defenses and new tactics. Lieutenant Paul Warren continued to study the intercepted quantum signals. "I think I can do more than just read their transmissions," he told Captain Wright, "and I think I can disrupt them." Olivia looked at the young lieutenant with new interest. "Disrupt how?" "Their shared consciousness is their strength," Paul explained. "But it could also be their greatest weakness. If we could break the connection between ships, each vessel would have to function on its own." For the first time since the battle began, Olivia smiled. "That's exactly what we need. Get to work on it immediately." As night fell on the luminary homeworld, the combined fleets prepared for what they all knew would be the final confrontation. The Void Collective would not retreat again. Next time it would be victory or extinction for both sides. The final confrontation took place in deep space, halfway between the luminary system and what humans now knew was the Void Collective's home territory. Admiral Jack Bennett himself led the reinforced Deathworlder Armada, now 50 ships strong, with the arrival of the Second Fleet from Earth. The massive super battleship Vengeance moved into position beside the repaired Defiance. The two ships formed the center of the human battle line, with smaller vessels arranged in a three-dimensional defense grid around them. "This ends today," Admiral Bennett told the fleet commanders during their final briefing. "One way or another." Captain Olivia Wright stood on the bridge of the Defiance, watching as her crew prepared for battle. They had been through so much, together. They had faced an enemy unlike any humanity had encountered before, and they had survived. But she knew the hardest fight was still to come. "The Void Collective is bringing everything they have," Tactical Officer Greg Hudson reported. "Long-range sensors show at least 70 ships approaching." Olivia nodded calmly. "And we're ready for them." Lieutenant Paul Warren had worked tirelessly with engineer Jason Hill to develop a weapon that could disrupt the quantum link between Void Collective ships. The device was ready, but untested. "It's our best chance," Jason explained to the fleet commanders. "If it works, it will cause chaos in the enemy fleet as individual ships suddenly lose their shared consciousness." Admiral Bennett approved the plan. "Deploy the quantum disruptor at the center of their formation. If we can break their hive mind, we can defeat them ship by ship." The Luminari had contributed to the battle plan as well. Their ships, though not built for combat, would use their light manipulation abilities to create the illusion of a weak point in the human defense. It would be a trap, designed to lure the Void Collective into the range of the quantum disruptor. As the enemy fleet approached, Admiral Bennett gave a final message to all ships. "Today, we fight not just for Earth or for the Luminary. We fight for the right of all species to remain free and independent. The Void Collective would absorb us all into their hive mind. We say no. We remain who we are, individuals with the right to choose our own path." The battle began with a massive volley from the Void Collective. Their weapons had evolved again, now firing pulses of dark energy that seemed to drain the power from any human systems they touched. The human fleet responded with their own new weapons, electromagnetic pulse cannons that targeted the unique energy signatures of the Void Collective ships. The Defiance shuddered as it took multiple hits. "Shields at 60%, reported Hudson. "They're focusing on us. They remember us from the earlier battles." "Good," Olivia replied. "Keep their attention while the Vengeance moves the quantum disruptor into position." The battle raged for hours. Ships on both sides took heavy damage. 3 human vessels were destroyed, their crews escaping in life pods that were quickly retrieved by nearby friendly ships. But the human battle strategy was pure Deathworlder creativity, unpredictable, adaptable, and utterly terrifying to a hive mind that operated on logic and certainty. "They can't predict what they don't understand," Sam Kelly had said during the planning sessions. "And they don't understand humans." The trap worked perfectly. The Void Collective, seeing an apparent weakness in the human formation, concentrated their forces on that point. As they did, the Vengeance moved into position behind them. "Now," ordered Admiral Bennett. The quantum disruptor activated. A wave of invisible energy spread outward, targeting the specific frequency of the Void Collective's shared consciousness. At first, nothing seemed to happen. Then, one by one, the enemy ships began to move erratically. "It's working," Jason Hill exclaimed as he monitored the device. "Their quantum link is breaking down." On the screens, the human forces watched as the once coordinated enemy fleet dissolved into chaos. Ships collided with each other. Some fired weapons in random directions. Others simply went dark, drifting powerless in space. "All ships target the disabled vessels," Admiral Bennett ordered. "Disable, don't destroy. We want to capture as many as possible." For the next hour, the human fleet systematically neutralized the confused and disoriented Void Collective ships. Without their shared consciousness to guide them, they were no match for the coordinated attacks of the Deathworlder Armada. When it was over, 30 Void Collective ships had been captured intact. 20 more had been destroyed when they refused to surrender. The rest had fled back toward their home territory. Commander Eliza Morrison, who had received the original distress signal, now led the diplomatic team that made contact with the suddenly individualized Void Collective entities. What they discovered shocked everyone. Many of them were unwilling participants in the hive mind, she reported to Admiral Bennett and Captain Wright. They were absorbed against their will, their individual consciousness submerged but not destroyed. As the disruptor's effects continued, more and more of the captured beings began to show signs of individual thought and identity. Some were confused and frightened. Others were grateful to be free of the collective. "We've been prisoners," one of them told Eliza through a translator. "Some of us for generations. The collective began with one species, but it consumed others, adding their biological and technological distinctiveness to its own. In the aftermath of the battle, a new galactic order began to emerge. The freed species from the Void Collective needed homes and protection as they rediscovered their individual identities. The Luminari, with their vast, peaceful territories, offered sanctuary. The Deathworlder Armada became the foundation of an interstellar peacekeeping force. Other species, long oppressed by threats they couldn't fight, began to seek Earth's protection. Continue. Earth Director Frank Powell addressed the United Earth Council. "We've been thrust onto the galactic stage in a way no one expected," he said. "We went to help one species, and we've ended up changing the power balance of this entire sector of space." Captain Olivia Wright stood on the observation deck of the Defiance, watching as Luminari ships escorted former Void Collective vessels toward a neutral space station for peace negotiations. Lieutenant Sam Kelly joined her, his marine biologists' mind still trying to process all they had learned about the various species they had encountered. "They sent a distress signal expecting help," Olivia mused. "They got something the galaxy had never seen before, humans fighting for someone else's home as fiercely as we'd fight for our own." Sam nodded. "That's the thing about Deathworlders. We survived everything our planet could throw at us. That makes us dangerous, yes. But it also made us protective of those who can't protect themselves." The Luminari representative, glowing with blue light, approached them on the observation deck. "We have a saying now," the alien said softly. "When darkness comes, call the Deathworlders. They do not fear the void." Olivia smiled at the alien's words. Humanity had been classified as Deathworlders by the galactic community, a term that had seemed almost like an insult. Now it was a badge of honor, a promise of protection for those who needed it. As the Defiance prepared for its journey back to Earth, Admiral Bennett sent one final message to the fleet. "You came to defend one world. You ended up liberating many. Remember this day. Remember that humanity's strength isn't just in our ability to survive the harshest conditions. It's in our determination to ensure others can survive too." The Deathworlder Armada set course for home, leaving behind a changed galaxy and a legacy that would echo across the stars for generations to come.